2. You should have a handout that's green that you can look at. Bible's on the table, or you can use your phone. My daughter is not here tonight. They're practicing for Greece, which opens tomorrow night. So she's been there every night till 9 o'clock all week long. I told my friend I would announce that Praise Fest is this Saturday, and that is April 29th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. here in Columbia. And that is, I know Colton Dixon is going to be there in concert, who's a Christian contemporary singer. And then the tickets are $25 to be a part of that. And it says they have food trucks, arts and crafts, kids zone, free parking. And then other artists include Brianna Dominica, Catch Fire, I think that's Henry, For the Fatherless, and Murphy Ridge Band. And that is all part of newsongpraisefest.com is where they're doing that. And it's on Zion Road this Saturday. So I want to make sure you guys do that. All right. So we are talking about Daniel tonight, and we're talking about people and how to deal with people, how to deal with our coworkers, how to deal with the people that we are, around all the time. And it could be, politicians, it could be competitors, other salespeople, it could be all kinds of things, neighbors. I was at Crossroads the other day, and there was a homeless lady in there, and I had experienced this before, but they had a little, you know how they have those display things that are tiered for cupcakes? It has a top tier, middle tier, bottom tier kind of thing. And they had snacks stacked, and there were different snacks on each level. And it says, on each level it said, please take one from each level. That's it, right? Take one from each level. You're welcome to have one for free from each level. So 3 things. So I'm standing talking to the lady who's director over there, and I'm asking her because she needs some stuff or whatever. And this lady's got a backpack, this homeless lady, and she is just dumping them in, one after the other. And Lynn goes, ma'am, and she said, that sign says, take one from each tier. And the lady just zips up her backpack and starts walking for the door. And she said, well, next time, please just, whatever it says. She didn't make her put them back or anything like that. But I had some experience with that, because a lot of people, if you're standing there, you go, hey, we're trying to help as many people, because they'll see 50 to 100 people a day at Crossroads. And to have enough stuff, whether it's bottled water, snacks, sandwiches, whatever it might be, they have to limit how much, because this isn't a free grocery store where you just walk in and take all you want, right? They're trying to help as many people as possible who are hungry and starving on the street. So we actually had in Knoxville 2 things that happened. One was we had a harvest carnival for kids, and we held it at a local middle school out on their, kind of like Reach Alliance does, Extreme Tour, is that we had it in a big field right beside a middle school, and we had all kinds of inflatables set up, and we had a lady who had a horse, and she was letting little kids ride on the horse, and she would lead it around and do that kind of stuff. We had all kinds of carnival games set up, and we had all kinds of food, very similar to what you had tonight over there on that table. And the sign said, and it was done by our teenagers, on a piece of poster board, free hot dogs, stuck to the table, right? And over there's that stuff. And then here it said free drinks, and the drinks were here in coolers, just like we have coolers sitting around and stuff like that. And, all that stuff that goes with it, chips and all that stuff. So we're standing there, and all these kids, we're talking about 100 kids or more, are just enjoying this day. They're just living it up. And their parents are all smiles. It's so sunny. It's fall. It's just gorgeous day and everything. And one of the ladies from my church comes over, and she kind of sidles up next to me, right? She comes, and I said, yeah. And she said, watch the couple that's over by the food table. And I said, okay. And so I'm watching, and it's a homeless couple that have walked up. It's a man and a woman, and she has one of those sling purses like you could put a kid in, right? That kind of purse. And he's got a backpack, of course, because you can't be homeless without a backpack. And so they're there, and I'm watching them, and she is taking hot dogs. Their hot dogs are wrapped in aluminum foil, and she is just one right after the other. She is loading them in. And the lady standing next to me goes, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. That's 36 hot dogs she just put in that sling purse. And the man is over there with his backpack open, and he is taking drinks out, and he's loading them like this into his backpack, and like this, and she's going, I don't know, that's like 17, 18, 19 soft drinks or whatever. And he can barely get it up to put it on his back, and everything. And she said, you have to go over there and say something to these people. And I was like, she goes, this is just wrong. So I leaned over to her, and I went, what does the sign say? And she said, free hot dogs. And I said, yeah. And I said, what does the other sign say? She said, free drinks. And I said, yeah. And so I walked over to the people and I said, hey, how are y'all doing? And I said, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm glad that you came. We're excited. I hope you'll come to church. But I noticed that you took like almost 40 hot dogs and all the drinks. And she said, it says they're free. We took them because they were free. And I said, but they are. They're free. They're absolutely free. I said, just most people wouldn't have done that because we want to make sure to have enough for everybody. All these children that are here, you can look around. And I mean, they're everywhere. There's kids everywhere. All these parents and all, everybody's there. And I said, we just want to make sure that we have enough for everybody to get at least one. And with you taking 40, I'm not sure we have enough or whatever. And she went, and she just kind of ran off with the 40 hot dogs. And her husband went trucking down the street, same thing. And I mean, that made some people really mad. It didn't make me that mad, but I had people going, next year's signs will have them printed with, only can have 2 hot dogs, for free, or whatever, those kind of things. And I was like, we're trying to be a witness for Jesus. And, this is what would have happened at my house. If I had gone over there, my mother was with me or my dad was with me, and I walked over there and I started going, loading up on hot dogs, I'd have got that right there, right in the back of the head, right? Is that, what are you doing, right? You know I'm wrong. What are you doing out there doing something like, right? My dad would put those hot dogs back. We're not taking more. You're embarrassing me. Stop that. You know better than that. That kind of thing.
Example also.
Okay.
We have these consignments house here. We have all these shoes, and we go to clean up, and it's like, where are my shoes? Brand new shoes. They take their shoes off and take the new shoes and leave them. But all they had to do was come ask us. Yeah. We'd give them to you. They just took them.
I noticed one of the thrift stores has started displaying one shoe of each pair.
Yeah.
And if you're going to buy them, then you'd have to come up and buy them, and they give you the other shoe. They keep it in the back in a box or whatever, and then display it that way. So, yeah, and so we tend to relegate that kind of behavior to somebody who's desperate. So like a homeless person, right? Okay, so we had a massive storm that came through Knoxville. The one, in fact, that blew the chimney off my house. Y'all remember that story? With my son out there grilling hamburgers, right? Blew the chimney off the top of my house, left a big gaping hole, and we had to we did all that stuff to it, right? In the next 2 weeks after that storm, because so many houses were damaged, it was like a tornado kind of came through, the government decided, the federal government, made it a state of emergency, and they came in and were trying to help everybody. And so what they did was, with the local Knoxville government, they said, we're going to provide Home Depot cards for anybody that had damage. $500 Home Depot cards. And so all you have to do is go down here to the Tennessee State office and get in line, and you can get you a $500 if you had damage at your house, you can get a card or whatever. It was gridlock on the street over there, and people were walking down there in line, and the government was not requiring you to show that you had damage on your house. You didn't even have to prove that you owned a home. There were people down there in line who I had helped with who were homeless, and they were lined up to get a $500 Home Depot card, even though they had no damage. And it was not just homeless people. I had friends calling me, hey, you can go get a free $500 gift card right down at the Home Depot. All you got to do, you just got to go down to the state office and just go down there and get in line. And there were tens of thousands of people. They had like 1,000 cards. And there were 10,000 people lined up down there to get these cards. And so for us, God cares about those kind of things. He cares if we're telling the truth. He cares if we have legitimate needs, then yes, we should be taking part in those things. And so I want us to think about the perspective. The sign out front has still got that sign about perspective on it. Let's look together in Daniel in chapter 2, And we'll pick up in the first verse, and Daniel is in captivity. He's in exile in Babylon. He's a Jew, and he was so handsome and so smart as a young kid that they took him along, and he gets to be part of their government, the brain trust, all these people that are there. And so it says in chapter 2, verse 1, in the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. Okay? So this is the group of which Daniel was a part. Okay? Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now the reason they have different names at different points in the story is because they got renamed when they went to Babylon. They got Babylonian names. And so we're dealing with Jewish names and Babylonian names. It goes back and forth. But the king says, I want you guys to come in here because I had a dream. I want you guys to interpret it. We see this over and over in the Bible, and it can be a tough thing. It says, verse 4. Then the astrologers answered. An astrologer, what's an astrologer? Stars, yeah. That's somebody that's going to tell you, they're going to look at you whether you're a Taurus or a Sagittarius or something like that. All that kind of stuff, and see if Mercury's rising and whatever, all these different terms that they use. But anyway, these astrologers answered the king, may the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it. That's confidence right there, right? They think they can interpret it. The king replied to the astrologers, this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. What's the level of stress and, all that right now? What just happened there? Okay, if you go, like if you say, I need a little counseling, and you go to a secular counselor, somebody who's not Christian or whatever, and you go in and you say, having some trouble with my marriage, or I'm having some trouble with depression or whatever, they'll have a conversation with you, and they may do a little dream interpretation with you. Sigmund Freud wrote all kinds of books on dream interpretation, him and Carl Jung both, and, a lot of modern psychology is based on that, and they'll have you lie down or sit down and tell them some of your dreams kind of stuff, and then they'll say, it means this. Well, and it's all fun. We like to, okay, I'm going to tell you my dream. I was a baked potato, and I was walking down the street, and I got into an 18-wheeler, and then I went to Arkansas where I met a man, right? I mean, and then they go, this is what that means. And we go, oh, wow, that's what it means, right? Well, these guys are there, and they're kind of giddy. Yeah, tell us the dream. We'd love to interpret it. And the king goes, no, I want you to tell me the dream I had and interpret it. And they went, what? And he goes, and oh, by the way, if you can't do that, I'm going to cut you to pieces and I'm going to turn your houses into rubble. Well, suddenly it's not fun anymore, right? It's been ratcheted up, and so this pressure is there, and there's a risk now. There's a serious risk about stepping forward and saying, I don't know what this is. So it says, verse 6, but if you tell me the dream and explain it, you'll receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me. Once more they replied, let the king tell his servants the dream and we'll interpret it. The second time they've said that, right? Which, by the way, is that unreasonable? No, that's not unreasonable. They said, just tell us the dream. We'll be glad to interpret it. So here they are, and he says, once more they replied, and they said that, and in verse 8, then the king answered, I am certain that you're trying to gain time because you realize that this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there's only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then, tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me. The astrologers answered the king, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asked! Exclamation mark. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. Now, them saying that separates themselves right there from Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Because these guys firmly have said, Nobody can do this. No human can do this, and the gods are up there somewhere. You know, it's the idea of transcendent God. Transcendent means God made us as a big ant farm, and he's kind of sitting on a throne way out there somewhere, and he's just watching it all happen, and he's not doing a thing down here. He's not intervening at all. The other idea is imminent, that he's here, that he's intervening, that he sent his son to die on the cross, that he's answering prayers, that he's, right? He's changing circumstances and all that stuff. So transcendent versus imminent. So for them, they're like, God's out there somewhere and he's not down here. We can't do this. And Daniel is not physically standing there at that moment. And look at the response that they get. In verse 12, this made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. We just ratcheted it up to another level, right? Now he has given the okay. He's given the order to kill them all. Not just the one that's talking, not just, okay, I'm just talking to wise men. I'm not talking to magicians. I'm not talking to enchanters. I'm not talking to astrologers. Right? It's all of them.
This one kid gets everybody.
He's the guy, he's the mouthpiece, and he said, we can't do it, right? For all of them. And the king said, okay, I'm going to execute you all. So at that point, Arioch, the commander of the guard, is getting ready to go do that. He is going to respond. And so it says, and the king is angry and furious is the word that's used there. So verse 14, when Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, so he's trying to obey, it says, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. And, you know, the other words that are used there are, in the New American Standard, is discernment or discretion, right? You use some tact in speaking to somebody. Do we do that in our marriages a lot of times? Because we can learn from this right here. When we speak to our spouse, do we speak with wisdom and tact? Right? Not always, right? Depends on what point you're making. Am I being honest about that? Right?
What's that?
Right. Discretion. You know, discretion means, and again, I said this in Sunday school on Sunday, as if you say, Chris, did you have that operation? I'll say, yes, I did. They took a big scalpel and they cut me right here and they laid it open on both sides. There was blood everywhere. And then the pus came out. And I'm telling you this whole story. And you're like, I just wanted to know if it went well. I didn't need to hear all those details, right? Use discretion, right? I've used some discretion. Don't tell me everything about the movie because I want to see it myself. Use some discretion. Tact being, I say it in a way that is best for you to understand it, that it, you know, it doesn't draw us into a fight, that it creates a bond between us. And so Daniel's, it's like a filter that goes off before he speaks. Do we have that filter all the time? No. Nope. If a customer starts yelling at us, we sometimes lose that filter very quickly. If we walk into the house and, you know, there are days, I have this saying at my house that there are days in my life where everybody wants to come stand in the same 1 foot of space with me. Everybody is just like, we all have to get over here real close together. Right? And every store I go to, everybody goes, and they're all like right here. And I'll go home, and then my dog is at my feet. Sela's at this side, Jill's at this side. And it's not because they're like, Daddy, husband, want to give you love. It's like, you know what happened to me today? I got to tell you, and I need you to go over here and do this for me. And would you? And the dog's going, you know, and I'm like, we don't all have to gather right here. This is not, you know, we can spread out through the house and we can still talk and everything. We don't all have to be in this 1 foot of space, right? And so, here comes B and Steve Austell. She told me they were coming. He didn't get off work until 6:30. So here we are, and he speaks to this guy, the guy who's supposed to execute him. That's who this is. He speaks to him with wisdom and tact. And then it says, if we keep reading down there just a little bit further, it says, verse 15, he asked the king's officer, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went to the king and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream to him. Okay, none of that makes any sense to me whatsoever. Here's a couple of extra handouts there, Mark. None of that makes sense. Not one piece of that. Okay, so what nationality is Arioch, the commander of the guard? Babylonian. What nationality is Daniel? Jew. Jew that we defeated and brought back as a prisoner of war. He's in exile here. So why is Arioch listening to Daniel and not executing him? Why is he doing what Daniel asked him to do? Daniel goes, can you explain to me why he wants to kill us? And Arioch goes, let me explain it to you. Why? Why is he explaining? He said, shut up, you're a prisoner. What do I have to explain anything to you, right? Why is he explaining it? And why is he letting go to the king? Doesn't that make him look bad? Aren't you supposed to execute that guy? Why is he in my face over here? And Daniel, because God is orchestrating it, right? I want you to see that is that God's working on somebody's heart here. And so, if we keep going just a little bit further, it says, so Daniel went to the king and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house. What does that mean? The crazy king that has, right? The king that has a fiery furnace, the king that has the lion's den, the king that's sitting here going, I had a dream, I want you to tell me what it was and interpret it for me. He's crazy lunatic man. Daniel goes to him and he goes, can we have some more time to interpret it? And the king goes, yeah. What did the king say to the wise man at the beginning of this story? You're just asking for more time. You're just stalling. And I'm going to have you people, I'm going to, cut you to pieces, turn your houses into rubble. I'm going to execute you. And Daniel goes and he says, hey, can we have a little more time? And the king goes, yeah. It doesn't say that, but we know he did because he went home. The king didn't kill him. He didn't have him killed. And so God is working on people in this story. And then verse 17, then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. That's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's their new names, right? He said he urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. How serious do you think they took this? Okay, so all the time in church, it could be any day of the week, somebody could call you and they're like, hey, Myrtle, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm out here, Bob, and I've been working on fences, putting fences up like this. And they said, well, I'm sick, and would you pray for me? And Myrtle says, yeah, we'll be glad to pray for you. We'll pray for you. And so, they're still working on fences for 3 or 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. Sun starts going down. They get cleaned up. They go in. They cook some dinner. They're sitting down at the table. Bob says, let's say grace. And Myrtle says, don't forget, let's pray for so-and-so, right? And they do. They pray for them. That's different than we're going to be executed. When do you think they prayed? I don't think there was much hesitation at that moment, right? I mean, I really do believe that they actually, he went, if we don't get the answer to this thing, he's going to kill us tomorrow morning at daylight, right? Clint Eastwood is going to come riding in, right, and take us captive back to the judge to get hung, right? Whatever it might be, is that we're sitting here, and so I think that it actually, the urgency of what went on, and then we say that, but when Jesus told his disciples, and if Doug was here, Doug would say they didn't understand. That's what he would say. Doug would say the disciples just didn't understand. But Jesus said, I'm going to die, and 3 days later I'm going to be raised from the dead. They're going to kill me. I'm going to be raised from the dead. And then he said these words. They were in the Mount of Olives. They were in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? They were in the Garden of Gethsemane. And then he said, would you guys stop right there and you pray? I'm going to go over here and pray. And he does. He's over there praying. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful prayers in the whole Bible. But I mean, it's crying out Jesus to his Father, please let this cup pass from me. I know what's coming. Whatever. And then he looks back over, and what are the disciples doing? Sound asleep. So it's the same thing. It's a similar urgency kind of situation. And I hope, and I'm assuming that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego understood that in the morning we could all be killed if we don't have the answer to this. So I don't think there was much sleeping going on. I think they stayed up praying all night. And here's the kind of praying. If your team is in a big ball game, there's a certain level of praying, right? Yep. If your kid is applied to several schools and you want them to get into it, there's a certain level of praying goes on, right? If they're thinking about getting married, yeah, we're trying to, Lord, please direct them to which person that they're supposed to marry, right? We're praying those kind of prayers. But if somebody's about to die, what's that kind of praying about? If mama is sick, what's the praying like? If our kid is laying in the NICU dying, what's the level of praying? It's not, oh, Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It's not, no. It is tears and weeping and on your knees and crying out and begging and saying, Lord, please don't let my child die. Don't let my mama die, Lord. Whatever it might be. Right. It's none of those. It is literally, and you guys remember, there have been several weeks have passed, but I said, God takes notice when those tears start falling down our eyes, right? It's not the same, because I'm sure that some of you use tears to get out of trouble with mom and dad at some point in your life, right? You cried, you said, I really didn't mean to break that lamp. And they go, oh, don't cry, it's okay, or whatever. Then the fourth lamp you broke, they're about ready to kill you, right? But I mean, the tears aren't working anymore, right? In this sense, that crying out matters to God. It's that contrite heart, that humility that's within them that matters so much. So they cry out, and if you look, that he asked them to do that, and their response is obedience. They fervently pray. It says, during the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. That's how we know he wasn't asleep. They would have said he was in a dream, right, if he had been asleep. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, praise be to the, in this whole paragraph here, praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells within him. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You've made known to me what we asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king. He did the impossible. God just did the impossible. And the number one priority, the number one thing that happens, there's no any sentence between the two. God revealed it, and out of Daniel's mouth comes this amazing prayer of praise and thanksgiving to God. It's the first thing. If Ed McMahon or somebody like Ed McMahon shows up at my front door with a great big fat check and he goes, you and Jill have won, right? How much of that money am I going to spend before those words come out of my mouth? You know what I mean, right? Jill, we won $52.2 billion. Oh, Jill, look at this check, Jill. And they're putting microphones in your face. And tell us, how do you feel right now? I'm a minister. Is that going to come out of my mouth immediately? I hope so. But I don't know that, right? I may be driving down the interstate in a red Ferrari before I go, oh, Lord, thank you for this, right? I mean, you know what I mean? It's not always the number one priority. And it is in this story, and I want you to see that because it should be. In any situation where we're crying out to God and we're praying, the first thing ought to be thank you. And, it's the level of, I always say, when you wake up in the morning, your prayers are there, and at night, what are you doing? Thanking him for answering those prayers. Thanking him for what you saw him do during the day. There's a hand-in-hand of prayer and thanksgiving that there's a 50-50 that we have to be living, giving back to him. All right, so let's look at just one passage here just real quick. Let me see if I can find it, and I may have to come back to it. It's okay. It's actually, let's just keep moving. It's okay. So he says, thank you to God. That's the first priority, right? Keep your finger there. Look at 117, because this is important. 117, so it's a chapter back. And this is as they're getting installed and coming to work for Nebuchadnezzar. They're prisoners of war. But it says, to these four young men, that's Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. It's making that point so that, how many of you all have ever seen, like when they interview any sports figure, any singer, any actor, when they get an award and they go up to the front, there are actors who say, thank you to my Savior, Lord Jesus Christ, for giving me every ability. I'm blessed. This is a gift. Yeah, absolutely. I don't deserve this. You hear that, right? And then there are people who go, oh, I knew it was coming because I'm probably the greatest of all time, right? I mean, there's those kind of mindsets that are out there, and we need to always recognize that everything that we're good at, God blessed us with, right? He gave us those abilities. He set that all up for us to be able to excel in this area or that area. And I think, at least in my own opinion, there's lots of different areas that God sets us up for. It's just whether we say, yes, we'll go learn it or not. You know what I mean by that? He puts people in our lives and he goes, I'll teach you this. And we go, oh, I don't want to do that, and it would have been a great opportunity for us, right? It would have been an excellent opportunity, but we weren't willing to do it. We weren't willing to sit down and listen. Maybe we were so young we couldn't, we were immature and didn't accept that, right? All right, so God gave him the ability, and then look at verse 24. Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret his dream for him. This is the point of the whole sermon. Why would he do that? Remember, what Nebuchadnezzar did was he said, I don't really believe any of these different religions, but I'm going to hedge my bets, and I'm going to bring a little bit from this country, 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 and surely one of them's right. We'll just worship them all. That's what we're going to do. And so he's sitting there doing that, and so Daniel is there for that reason. Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because he's brought some of the people in, from some of the exiles in to use them as advisors, and these are supposedly the best of all these places. So he's one of a bunch of different groups. And they're competitors. They're people that he works with. And Daniel has the answer to the impossible dream. He has the opportunity and the power to go, look, they're my competitors. It makes me look better. Helps me with my job. I get pushed all the way to the top, right? He had that opportunity, did he not? And he didn't. He didn't let them be killed. They're not his family. They're not his friends. These are people, okay, the question will come in just a minute is, was that a good choice? Because those are the same people that'll throw him in the lion's den later on. That's the same people that throw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fiery furnace. Same group of folks. The group that goes and paddles on them, right? That they're doing this and that. And so the question is that good? And I'm going to say yes. It is a good thing that he makes this choice. So he goes and he saves their lives. Even though he doesn't have to, he saves their lives. And it says, Arioch took Daniel, I'm in verse 25 there. He says, took Daniel at once and said, I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means. Okay. So, this is a whole different way of thinking about things. So, who's going to look good in the king's eyes right now? I went and found a guy that knows the answer to your dream. I'm responsible for bringing you the answer to your dream. I'm bringing this guy right here. And it's kind of like, I cured cancer. I found a guy that cured cancer and I brought it to you. You know what I'm saying? He's actually taking some credit. He's making sure, and we do this, right? We do this. I just want to make sure that you understand that I brought you the guy that told you the dream, right? And so Arioch does that with the king. And it says, the king asked Daniel, also called Belshazzar, that's a Babylonian name, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. He just equated himself to the other wise men, enchanters, astrologers, right? He just put himself, he just said, they were right. No man can do this. He didn't have to say that. He could have said, yes, I am the guy that can interpret your dream, right? They were wrong, I'm right. Make sure that you get me in. I get the top level office with the one with the window, and I get the, right? And they get down here somewhere. It don't matter. But he doesn't do that. He equates himself to them. There's a certain level of humility that's there. And the next line is, verse 28, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. Giving God the complete credit. He's the one that's doing this. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that passed through your mind as you were lying in bed are these. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive. Goodness, man. Who says that? Who says that? We all go, I'm the guy that brought you the answer. That was me. I'm the answer man. I'm the guy that came in here and God revealed it to me. He did the impossible and he used me as the conduit for it, right? That's not what he says. He's basically saying, I didn't have much to do with this. God just picked me He's the revealer of mysteries, not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation and that you may understand what went through your mind. Your majesty looked, and there before you was a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet, and the iron and clay, and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, and the silver and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your majesty, you're the king of kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky. Wherever they live, he has made you ruler over them all. You are that head of gold. Notice, in telling him that, he's still laying out for him the priorities of who's in charge? God's in charge. He let you be the ruler. He's making sure to point that out. This is a guy who thinks that he is God. This is a guy who thinks he is the ruler of the planet. And he is, but it's God that's allowed that to happen. Daniel making sure to point that out. It says, after you, another kingdom will arise inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. For iron breaks and smashes everything, and as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom, yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. As the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with the baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of the mountain, but not by human hands. A rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true and its interpretation trustworthy. Then here it is. So this is the result of him saying this. This is what it brings about. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. The king who rules the planet gets on his face before him, on the ground before Daniel. And he says, yeah, and he gives him, it starts this stuff. He says he gives him honor, and he paid him honor, and then he gives him offering of incense and money. And then it says, the king said to Daniel, and this is what we're looking for, surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery. Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon, placed him in charge of all of its wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. All right, so we're sitting there and we're looking at that, and we're looking at what was the response, and I gave you 8 things there that he did. 8 huge blessings to Daniel. Did you hear that? Now, sometimes we think we have to point out that we should get the credit, right? Don't we do that on a regular basis? We have to point out, I want you to make sure that gift's for me. That one right there, that's for me. I want to make sure that you know that because that's the best gift here. And I just spent a lot of money, spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. Just want you to know, I bought that gift for you, right? Don't we do that? Anybody here guilty? Do you head this way? Everybody here has done that at some point, in some way, shape, or form. And yet Daniel nowhere does that. Nowhere does Daniel ring his own bell. Nowhere does he go, hey, everybody look here at me, I'm Daniel. I did this. I did the impossible. God revealed it to me. No one else on the planet, he did it to me. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been great seeing you all here. Thank you. I am the greatest interpreter of dreams that's ever lived. Right? He didn't do any of that. None of it. And what is the result for him? Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and anybody? He will lift you up. Humble yourself, in humbling being that prostrate before God. You know, Nebuchadnezzar prostrated himself. He laid his face down on the ground. But Daniel, with his words and actions, humbled himself, and he said, I'm not greater than anybody else. God just gave it to me. I'm giving it to you. He wanted you to know it. And the result of that humility was 8 things. I listed them for you, and they're not just 8 little things. They're 8 really big things. He does the Joseph thing where he puts him kind of second in command of the whole place. We're talking about, again, like Joseph was second in command in Egypt, and Egypt ruled the planet. Now the Babylonians rule the planet. And so this is a huge deal for that to be there. Okay, so let's look at page 3. We're almost done. Page 3 being that question that I asked earlier of why? Why would he let these guys live? It doesn't help him selfishly. It doesn't help him to let them live. It actually lets them stay around for other things. And so I want you to see, if we just keep reading just a few little passages down. Look at chapter 3. And this is the fiery furnace. This is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being tossed into the fiery furnace. But look what happens. So one little piece is passed here, and it says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide. My Bible down at the bottom says it's 90 feet high, 9 feet wide, 27 meters high. It's talking about meters there. But it says, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, the prefects, the governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, nations and peoples of every language, this is what you're commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down on your face and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into the blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. We love you. Right? That's what it says. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold. And that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you set up over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you've set up. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And you know the rest of the story. Throws them into the fiery furnace. Throws them in. They actually get in there and walk around, and the king says, didn't we throw 3 in there? I see 4. One that looks like Jesus. One looks like the Son of Man, right? That's what he said. And then they come out unharmed. I tell you that story because if Daniel had just said, go ahead and get rid of those guys. They don't know anything. Just let them be killed. Then they wouldn't have been there to be able to do this. There would have been other people in their place, and it still might have happened, but those people wouldn't have been able to do this. So we sit there and we look at this story and we go, so was it a good thing that he did that? It's always a good thing when we do what God tells us to do. When we unselfishly live our lives. And in the midst of all of this, I want to point this out. Many of us live our lives selfishly. Remember what I talked about? If I'm standing in line at Kroger and I'm 8 back, and the other people are over there, and the lady, she's ringing her stuff up, and she's looking at her phone, and she's going, yeah, maybe later. I'm standing back there going,
Everybody is.
right? And there's a lady, she goes, I need some help. Is this the 32-ounce can? Does this come in a larger can than this? Or can I get it in an 18-ounce can? Because the recipe just says 18 ounce. I don't really want to buy 32 and overbuy, but would it be okay? And I'm going, right? I'm just going crazy, right? I'm standing back there, right? You know what I'm saying? And then somebody will say, I forgot that. I'm having liver and onions. I need the onions. I got the liver. Let me go. Hang on, I'm going to go get some onions, right? And they take off running that way. And you go. And then, you know. And I stand there and I get madder and madder and madder. And God's sitting up in heaven going, what are they doing? And I'll go, they're buying groceries. And God will say, what are you doing? And I'll go, I'm buying groceries. And then he'll say, are you better than them? I should be. No, right? No. No, they're doing the exact same thing you're doing. There's been plenty of times where you've been standing up there and you go, this won't ring up. Can you help me come over here? My card's not working. Right? I've done the exact same thing. I'm guilty of it exactly the same thing. I've said, hey, I need to run and get something. All those things. And if we live our lives selfishly, we will do nothing in our life except be dissatisfied. We will sit in traffic and consider all the people around us idiots. You morons have done this. You have clogged up the whole interstate, you know? If we live that way, we are constantly going to be dissatisfied because things did not go our way. We did not get pushed to the front of any line. We did not get all the credit. There are going to be times when our boss goes, I'm going to promote this person over you. And you go, how on earth did you come to that conclusion where you promoted them over me? Right? And we're going to have this meltdown. You know what I'm saying? There's just this living this selfish life. Okay, so that's the first part. But the second part is, God did not create us to be the judge for all the other people around us. Right?
We don't mind that.
Let me explain to you what I mean. Jill hates these kind of stories because this is how it starts. I was dating a girl at UT, right? We were in Young Life together. We've been dating almost 2 years at that point. We did Young Life. We went through Young Life training, which is called Quest. And you go, basically you're there a couple of nights a week, and you're there for 3 or 4 hours, and you're going through the Bible, you're learning that, you're learning what it means to be a Young Life leader, all this stuff. So we get through, we're made Young Life leaders to go minister at this school, high school, this high school, this high school. She was assigned to a high school, I was assigned to a different high school, but everybody got put somewhere, right, to one of these schools. And we would go out and we would go to ball games, we'd go to concerts, we'd go to wherever, lunchrooms, and go talk to kids, and we'd do Bible studies, we would do, events. I'm just watching Lucille just walk around like she's just nobody's business back there. She's just walking around. She is not crawling, she's walking. So anyway, this goes on, and the girl that I was dating was involved in a sorority. And in her sorority, she got elected to be like vice president of her sorority, which meant the next year she would be president of her sorority. And so she was heavily involved in this sorority. It was one of the main ones, you would know it if I said it. And so she was really excited, and I was like, way to go, high five, that's awesome, way to go. And her parents were all pumped and everything, a special ceremony for her to be able to do that. And so somebody in Young Life decided that they were going to write a letter. And they weren't going to sign their name to the bottom of it. They were just going to write this big long letter that said, you are participating in a sorority which is evil and is from the devil. And, you're helping promote those kind of things. And all those people are just getting drunk all the time, and sleeping around all the time. And you're a part of that, and you're promoting it. And I can't believe that you would do something like this. Blah, 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 blah. Signed, nobody. Right? Gutless coward, is what it said down the bottom, right? Gave it to her. What happened?
After she prayed?
That happened, yeah. Right here on this shoulder. Yes, that did happen. She did cry. What happened after that?
Probably quit Young Life.
We're at Young Life the next day. Where's she today in her relationship with Jesus Christ? She hasn't been to a church in over 40 years. Because somebody decided they were the judge. They decided that they were going to point this out. Now, for us, there's plenty of times in the Bible where the words are, use this to rebuke somebody, right? It's the how that we do that. This is the problem a lot of times, right? Is that I love that Daniel said, the king's looking at him and Daniel goes, I'm not smarter than any of the rest of these guys standing here. God just chose me to give me the answer. I was praying and he gave me the answer and because he wanted you to know it. And in the midst of humbling yourself, I have found that God just is on my side, working on my behalf, and he's working out all the details. He's taking care of every little thing. And, you know, and if I went out and I set out to make myself happy, what ends up happening? There's a lot of people that you know that sit in their homes every night and they drink 1 or 2 bottles of wine or a 12-pack and they just numb themselves to sleep because they can't stand their life and the emptiness that it exists, right? My dad did that for years because he was felt like, hey, my life is not what I want it to be. And for us, we need to be able to say, hey, I'm going to do what God asked me to do. I'm going to do what Jesus asked me to do, which means I'm going to put other people first, right? You know that when we say the golden rule, everybody thinks that's a t-shirt that was made up by like Amway or something, right? You know, they think that's what it is, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Because we say it says, do unto others as you would have them do to you. And when we do that, God honors that. I want you to know that without a doubt, that God honors that. And I want us to take that to heart because every single time, this is not a, okay, I just want you to be able to fathom this. Okay, so we did our taxes. I shouldn't say it that way. Jill did our taxes. She got it all taken care of, collected up everything, whatever. And they came back and they said, you are getting back 35 cents. Right? I mean, you know, no, it was $40, I think, something like that, right? You're gonna get back $40. And we were like, yes, we didn't have to pay. Woo, woo, high five, right? So we're doing that, right? So I'm sitting there and we're talking about something else, and God put some choices out there, and one of which was I'm walking down the street between 2 stores, and there's $60 blowing around on the ground in cash, and I went, well, I hope this continues, right? I mean, I'm taking this money up off the ground, and I'm standing there, and I'm holding this $60, and I'm looking around at someone who's desperately going, you know, I mean, because I figure there's somebody going, where's my $60, you know, whatever. And I stood there, and I went, and I put it in my pocket, and I just stood there, and I was right next to a store, and I was like, right here, and I'm looking around, and I have gone in before with my kids, and my kids are like, Dad, you're not going to turn that money in, are you? Dad, you're not going to turn that money in, are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to turn that money in. And they're like, Dad, if you turn the money in, they're just going to keep it. And I'm like, that's up to them or whatever, right? So I stood there and I was like, Lord, what do you want me to do with this money? I haven't seen anybody. I stood there for almost 45 minutes. I was standing there going, surely somebody's going to come back looking for their $60 that pulled, you know, that fell or whatever. I stood there. Almost an hour passes. I'm still standing there going, Lord, what do you want me to do with this money? What do you want me to do? I just stood there. I was like, I'll be glad to give it to whoever you want me to give it to, Lord. You just tell me what you're going to do. So I kept it in my pocket, got in my car. I drove. I came to the church because I had something to do. It was Saturday morning, and I walk in the door, and I come in, and I sit down, and I'm praying, Lord, I feel bad. I got this money. What do you want me to do with it? I know that you have a reason for this or whatever. Sam walks in. He comes in. He's like this. He goes, I have been driving all night for Lyft, you know, Uber, whatever he's doing. And he goes, I am exhausted. He goes in. He sits down. He starts working. I got some things I got to do, whatever. And I went, oh. So I take the $60 out of my pocket and I go, Sam. And I tossed it on the desk, and his eyes go, what's this for? And I said, God told me to give it to you. And he's like, really?
Yeah.
And his face lit up, and I was like, I mean, it wasn't even that much money, but he was like, thank you so much, because this day started off really bad, and you know, whatever. And I don't know where the $60 came from, but I know I did what God told me to do with it. You know what I'm saying? And so for us, what we have to be, and the reason that I tell you that story is then I drove home, and my wife is sitting at the house, and she goes, guy who did our taxes has messed them up now. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, oh, well, he was supposed to claim, we were claiming 2 of our kids, and he only claimed 1 of our kids. And I said, so does that mean we'll get more money back now? And she goes, oh, yeah, we should get a lot more back now. And I went, thank you, Lord. Appreciate that. I thank you for honoring that, Lord. I want you to see that, because when we do out of humility, then God lifts us up. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and He will lift you up. Then, and as far as the judging part goes, is let's just work on us, right? Let's just work on us, and we'll let God work on everybody else. The reason that I say that is because what I mentioned about the young man that came into church, the crazy guy a couple weeks back, right? Just so you know, I went and had a conversation with some of the local officials who work with the homeless in the area. And I said, do you know so-and-so? And they said, yeah, absolutely we do. He's crazy as a bag of cats. And I said, what does that mean? And they go, he has schizophrenia. And I went, oh. And they go, he's very dangerous. And I went, oh, that's good to know. And they said, well, did you have a run-in with him? And I said, no, we didn't have a run-in with him. And I said, we just didn't call the police. We actually got him some food, took him, and got him a place to stay. And they said, man, I'm glad you didn't call the police, because he would have come unglued, and there's no telling what he would have done. And I went, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Right? Is that in every single thing, we're not judge and jury, but we need to do everything we can to move them one space over, closer to knowing Jesus, and having that opportunity to see him on display in our words and our actions. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this Bible study and for our time together. We ask that you would bless everybody that's watching, that you'd bless all our folks that are here. Give us safety on the way home, and we ask that you would bless us in our jobs, in our marriages, in our relationships with our kids, and we just thank you for the ways in which you work through us. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us.